I'll see you in the land of Mordor. Death awaits you at the border. Pass on through the gates of fun, destroy the ring of power.
Hey, Middle Earth Roleplaying fans, Roman Daisel is back after a little bit of delay, doing all our stuff. Today we're going to be looking at the Gates of Mordor, 8105 of the series. Now, I never had this module when I played. I had to buy this off eBay instead. Can't remember what I paid for it. I bought it in 1999, and then I went to my mom's house. I never saw it until like 2002, 2001. Did a quick read, didn't see it again until 2005. This book was released in 1987, and by the time I started collecting, it wasn't easy to find. I think I did see it a couple of times, but never bought it. There was always something else to buy instead. And the cover art's by Agnes McBride, which I love. Like the horde of orcs running across the plain of Udin, it looks like. I think you can see the towers of the teeth in the backdrop as well. And it looks like they're heading for Durthang and the Gates of Mordor. So it's a very cool cover art by Agnes McBride, one of his better ones. But let's get into it. Alright, so we're back down to the table now. Let's flip this over. So this module takes place in northern Ithilien, in the Ithilien area. Pretty close to Henneth Annan, and also pretty close to Durthang. So in this region here, every one of these ready-to-run adventures, they try and cover a different part of Middle-earth that's very little explored. Alright, let's flip it over. So nothing jumps off in the inside cover unlike the other ones. It's just a table of contents and the guidelines and player characters. You get some pre-generated PCs that you can use as fodder. Send them in first, let them weaken the enemy, and then you go in for the kill maybe. And then it goes right into the Orcs of the Green Claw. Now it doesn't really mention much about the Orcs of the Green Claw until later in the module. You'll find out what it really is. And then we jump right into the first adventure, the Trail of the Wine Bandits. So this area of Ithilien is known as the Vineyards of Gondor. And in this particular case, there's a particular vineyard called Mar Maliarn, and it's got well-known wines and stuff like that. And it's an estate high up in the foothills in Littlehorn. So he produces wine and sells it to local ale houses and whatnot. So there's one guy who has a particular drinking establishment, Firishel. He's getting worried because his wine shipment from the estate has been delayed, long overdue. So what he's trying to do is that he's trying to recruit a party to go check out the estate and find out what's going on with the wine delivery. Because at this point in time, this is after the Great Plague, Gondor's military forces are stretched pretty thin, and only the irregular patrol goes up that far. Gondor's main concern is the Towers of the Teeth and Minas Ithil and Cirith Ungol. Durthang is abandoned at this time, and Cirith Ungol is soon to be abandoned. So while he's recruiting this party, there are bandits in the area, and these bandits have noticed orcs in the region, and these bandits are now mimicking the orcish movements. It's pretending to be orcs so people don't come after them. So these bandits are taking shelter in a place called the Cliff of Shadows. And from this cliff, they can see way out towards the Great Road that runs through Ithilien itself. And they can make raids. Now, there are orcs in the area, and these are the Orcs of the Green Claw, or they're called the Scara Hai in their own tongue. They are responsible for the delay in the delivery of the wine to Firishel, and in fact, they put an end to hundreds of years of winemaking. They raided and destroyed the estate, killed everyone. So they slaughtered the entire household in their beds and took prisoners. Now some orcs have come back to the winery because one of the prisoners said there was treasure still in the waters around the estate. So a group of orcs have come back to check it out. So now we get in the NPCs. You got Kerlink, who is the chief of the bandits, and it talks about his backstory. Barder, another one, and Moff, as well as Kiristel. And all their backstories are there. Nothing too spectacular about this. This is basically you're going after not just these guys, but also you're going to run into the orcs. And the orcs are led by Gabolo and Ruska. They're commanders of the basic Scara Hai fighting unit known as a Bukra, or Claw. As a Claw has 5 talents, so the Bukra has 5 orcs, 2 warriors, 2 scouts, and a Shirek, who is responsible for getting the other 4 to follow orders and complete the task handed down by tribal superiors. Shireks have the ability and use special weapons. The later are clawed maces, which serve as a token of rank among the Scara Hai. And then he gives a description of them. And the Shireks have special abilities all of their own. So we know that there's at least 10 orcs in the area, possibly more. Next it goes into a typical burqa, and he gives a brief description of the skills of the warriors and the scouts. Now there's also some Pukal men in the area. So this estate is obviously very old if it's got Pukal men, or there was a pre-existing settlement long before the Dunedain arrived to have Pukal men. And though these things are weathered, if the orcs start poking at these Pukal men, they might come to life and start trashing them, or anyone else in the vicinity. And it gives their stats as well. Layouts of the Mal Melianan and the Undurath Dueth. So it gives a description of the area surrounding the estate. The layouts, so you got a villa, gardens, vineyards, the dam, the lake, and the park, as well as the track and the ford. And then it gives you the topographical map of all these things. So 1 is the villa, 2 is the gardens, and 3 is the vineyard itself. 4 would be the dam, 5 is the lake, and 6 are the fords. Then it gives you the layouts of the villa itself. The gatehouse, outer court, stables, wine room, ale room, perfumery, baths of the dry heat. So it's kind of like your typical Roman villa. The fact that there are no guards means that they feel pretty secure. They just don't have the manpower to man the walls and have a watchman to keep things safe. It's got more baths, inner court, terrace, servants' hall, kitchens, dining room, living room, chambers, temple, the cellars. So there is treasure to be found in these rooms. If you poke around. And that's what the orcs are doing. They're poking around things, looking, especially in the lake itself, looking for treasure. Then you get the layouts of where the bandits are hiding. So the hill, the eyebrow hill. It gives a description of that. The track, the cleft, a rope walk, and the caves. So you have to take a rope to get to the bandits' hideout. You have to go up a rope to a rope walk and get to their caves. So it's a pretty well defended area. Of course, the downside is you can starve them out. And then a description of what's inside this cave. It's got A, B, C, D. Not a lot of rooms, nowhere to get out. So you can starve these guys out. So you got the task starting the players. Obviously, you're going to get hired by the alehouse guy. And then you got to go check out the winery, the estate. You'll probably get a map. It's easy. Fearchild can only give you initial help and give you, supply the map. The obstacles, obviously, the bandits are an obstacle. The terrain and the orcs are the biggest obstacle. Rewards, well, obviously, any plunder you get. And you'll probably get rewarded by Fearchild and by the Gondorian authorities, who might actually take a notice if there's orcs in the region. You get encounters, so encountering the bandits. You can set up a possible ambush, what route you want to take. And you got encounters of the villa, so you're going to encounter orcs of the villa. And encounters of the lake, you're going to encounter orcs as well. There'll probably be 1 burqa at the villa and 1 burqa at the lake, searching around. Which would be good. It'd be easier to take down if they're separated. If they're together, it's going to be a little harder, especially if you come in at night. And then it gives you the NPCs for the whole adventure. That's a pretty good starter adventure. Something easy to do. There's only 4 bandits and then 10 orcs. So a low-level party of maybe 5 players should easily be able to do this. You want at least 1 level 3 guy in there. Alright, the next adventure is called The Trouble at Littlehorn, The Tale of Buried Paras. It's a tower that was created long ago by a Dunedain guy, and now it's abandoned. So this tower stood abandoned for centuries before the orcs of the Scara Hai decided to make an outpost of it. So it's under the command of Balatab, a dark and evil half-troll from the distant wastes of Khand, recruited to serve an even darker master. So Balatab has control of some 15 burqas of Scara Hai, and is visited regularly by the Karg Krakors, or Tearing Fangs of the Scara Hai chieftain. So that means he's got 75 orcs under his command. For some reason, Merp loves to use the half-troll. Tolkien only mentions half-troll men that look like half-trolls. He doesn't really go into a lot of detail about stuff like that. Probably they were just guys from the deep south who look like trolls, big guys. Anyway, since their arrival, the Orcs have carefully planned and executed numerous raids. Initially, these were against isolated farmsteads and cottages, but they've had more recent targets, and that included the large villa and winery. And Firmas, an elven village. So there's an elven village in this area, which I find highly unlikely. The elves would have left Ithilien long ago, probably shortly after the War of the Last Alliance. The elves would have passed on. The only elves in Gondor would have been those that had Helland, and they disappeared entirely by the 21st century. So in 1640, Orcs in Ithilien would not be something to be seen. It's possible, but not a village. So this village, they're attacking this village and besieging it, and eventually they will destroy it. And one elf, Thanadarian, he gets away and looks for help. So he's one of the NPCs, a Sylvan elf, and he'll help you. And it talks about Balatab and what he is, and then Versh, the Kar Kragor. He's one of 2 lieutenants of the chieftain of Scara Hai, and his trusted messengers and advisors are drawn from the scouts. So this guy will regularly show up and keep an eye on him. So you got a layout of Barry Paras, the scree slopes, brushwood, tunnel, and a lookout and trail. Got a nice picture of the Scara Hai. That's a cool picture. Gives the topographical layout, the tower itself, and then it goes into the description of what the tower is. Level 1 has an office, kitchen, and storeroom. Level 2 would be the entrance lobby. It's quite common for towers not to have their entranceway on the first level. You would either have a stone staircase leading up to the second level, or a ramp that could be detachable. That way, if you're attacked, you just pull up the ramp or burn it. And then stairs would... It's hard to bring a battering ram upstairs. So it's quite defensible that way. So this place would be littered with whatever the Orcs brought with them. Not much would have survived from the 7th century when it was still an active tower. Your bedroom, a master's bedroom, guest room. Level 3's got the Great Hall. You know, your typical stuff, you're going to find stuff there. And there's traps. The task starting the players, now either you can do this after you discover what happened to the villa, or you can get sidetracked and run into this elf and go help him instead. So it's either you do or you don't. You can bypass it if you want. This one you might need a few of those pre-generated player characters to help out and become fodder, because you're going to be coming up against a half troll plus 75 Scara Hai. Aids, obviously Thanadrim, he's going to help you out. Obstacles, obviously the strength of the tower itself and the strength of the garrison are going to be problems. You're better off going back to the authorities and telling somebody. Rewards, there's probably a fair amount of treasure in buried Paris, and you'll probably get a reward from the Gondorians themselves. Encounters, obviously the Orcs. You get preliminary encounters, specific encounters, and finally you get the NPCs in trouble at Littlehorn. Which brings us to the next adventure, the Gates of Mordor. Here we go, finally something that goes with the title. This one's talking about Durthang Fortress. Durthang was abandoned after the Great Plague and the Orcs have moved in. You get the tale of Garhur, master of Durthang. Now this guy's supposed to be like a first age werewolf, demonic werewolf. Merp loves to bring these first and second age creatures back from the dead and name them. And there's a hideous and monstrous jewel in the shape of a wolf called the Androg. So it's kind of like the tribal totem. They also have enchanted wolf pelts that if you use them you become a half orc, half wolf. So these guys are the perfect orcs to watch over Durthang and secure the border into Mordor. So the NPCs, we got Gwaihir. It talks about how he's immortal, evil beast descended from the Lesser Maiar. So he is basically a Lesser Maiar because they don't really procreate themselves. I think the only one that really did was Ungoliant and Melian, the two that are most famous. Because Shelob is the daughter of Ungoliant and Melian was the mother of Luthien. Then we get the Fa Korlash, the great leader of the Orcs of the Green Claw. And then you got Thanandrian, who's still around. And he might be able to be recruited to help the adventurers. So this is a trip into Mordor itself, on the border of Mordor. You're leaving the Forithlian and going into the Mountains of Shadow. So it's not for the faint of heart. Again, you want to make sure your characters are all leveled up a couple of times, from level 1 to level 3 at least, and you want a couple of other of those player characters again. The layouts, Unfortunately, you get to Durthang, you have to pretty much go to Cirith Ungol and follow the Morgay Ridge. So it's even harder. So this is an adventure you might want to leave until you have a bigger party or more experience, because you're going to have to go back to go forward. It gives you a description of the Valley of Flames, the Imla Lechel, the Cirith Hecklon or Ice Stone Pass, and a couple of other things. The layout of the tower and the Orc Caverns of Durthang. So I like the little area map it gives, and a brief description of what this would look like. It would be of a Gondorian design, and there's Orc Caverns behind it. So you get the tower entrance, which has various rooms. It's got the Chamber of Initiation, Chamber of the Crag Kogor, Chamber of Andrag, Chamber of the Fa Kodesh, and Gothar's suite himself. And then it's got him with the wolf skin, and one of them is changing into a wolf. The Durthang Tower. And finally, you go into the caverns itself. Now you can use this layout for any other adventure. So the task is easy. Obviously, you want to find out what happened to Durthang, find out what happened to the garrison, and find out the truth about the Scara Hai. Will it warrant a huge attack by Gondor? Can Gondor go in there? Probably not. But it's up to you if you want to try this adventure or not. Starting the player, the aids, the obstacles, encounters. So you encounters in the northern Ethel Dueth. So you're always going to find the Scara Hai and Beast. Vapors, so events or nothing. So it could become a boring trip at some point. And other than that, it could become exciting. Encounters in Durthang, you're going to find the Scara Hai, the traps, obviously. And you might get distracted by items that the Scara Hai leave around. Then it goes into a description of Scara Hai as a small tribe, how they moved around, and how Gohar found a way to enchant wolf hides so that when the Scara Hai downed them, they assumed the form part warg, part orc. So destroying that enchanted hide would be great. Getting rid of Gohar. Gohar himself is a level 10, so for a guy who's been around since the first age, he's not very powerful. So they're not exactly powerful adversaries. The chief of the tribe is a level 6. So if you're mid-level, you can definitely do it. Encounters in the northern Ethel Dueth. Beasts of northern Ithilien and the Ethel Dueth. So fell beast, flies, mortar, goat, wild spider, giant, flames, fog, smoke, fall, lost, spikes, nothing happens. Find a ghost. I don't think that's going to happen either. Wild boar, wild goat, warhorse. You're going to find a warhorse down there. Kraken. You're not going to find a kraken in the lake. So the beast table is kind of stupid. Corpse candle. Not very realistic. Giant spider. So you might find giant spiders there. That's a possibility with shell up around. Your herbs, your herbalism, proper names and places. And last, you have a black and white regional map. The elf village, the villa at Mar Melianen, the Cliff of Shadows where the bandits are hiding out. And I guess there is a secret pass through to Durthang that's not being used. It's not on any other map but this one. Other than that, Durthang is very isolated. You'd have to follow the Morgay Ridge. So that's something Ice created. Alright, so that was Gates of Mordor. What I think, after reading through it again and going through all the little rooms and that, I know I gave just brief descriptions of stuff. It's not a bad adventure book. A lot of things are obviously MERP creations, and they go into a region. With the adventure modules, they try and go into different regions. And this was their first foray into for Ithilien. The first two adventures make more sense than the last adventure, though I did like the fact they went to Durthang Fortress. I thought they could have did more in terms of the layouts for Durthang. And I wish they had given military stats for later years. But this is just the adventure books, they don't really do that. So the first two adventures in this module are definitely for low to mid-level players. For the last one, you kind of need to be more higher up, because you're taking on more creatures. And more scary creatures of that. So you definitely want to be higher up. You want to be closer to from level 7 up to level 10. But overall, it's not a bad module. I wouldn't call it great, but it's definitely better than some of the others I've seen. Anyway, any Middle-earth role-playing fans, let me know what you guys think of the Gates of Mordor. Do you have it? Did you use it? Were you able to play with it? And what'd you think? Leave comments in the comments section. Hit that subscribe button. Ring the bell for any new new videos that come out. You guys know the drill. And until next time, I'm Roman Daisel. I am out of here.
The tower